Deshaun Watson not out of the Tony Buzbee business. According to The Athletic, Deshaun Watson, who makes his return to Houston this Sunday, is going to be playing in front of not only Tony Buzbee, but some of his accusers, as many as 10, according to The Athletic. Why? Like, why is this a thing? We've covered this legal thing for a while. I think there is some middle ground to what he was accused of and everything else, but why? It seems a little bit weird, and I know that Tony is a very successful lawyer. He's better at his job than 99% of us, but this just seems like kind of like a strange play by Tony Buzbee, and just kind of one of those things. It's just like I think Lopez thought he had a much stronger opinion about it than me. Maybe that's because I just don't want any like Tony Buzbee smoke at the moment, but I don't understand what this is accomplishing going to a game with 10 accusers and all that, especially after the settlement and stuff. I find this a little bit, I don't want to say too much, but I don't know. It's just not overly amusing to me. I was talking to, and there's a video breaking down the Deshaun Watson era, basically by year. If you don't subscribe, you can go back and check that out. That was last night's video. I've allowed myself to look at the Deshaun Watson era fondly, despite the fact it didn't end the way that any of us wanted it to end. I just find it to be a consequence of organizational incompetence, which is why Deshaun Watson's out of here and why he wanted the trade before any of this happened. I enjoyed watching him play. I enjoyed feeling like you had a chance to win every game, whether you did or didn't. And I think I think there needed to be consequences for the way that things were going during Deshaun Watson's time, during the meat of his time. And I think that was the consequence, that you lost a franchise quarterback. So I think it's necessary. I don't know how much stuff has changed. How much has the culture changed? The culture that we thought they were building has been completely just pissed on this year. You have Jack Easterby gone, which he should have never even been here in the first place. And you have Brandon Cooks wanting nothing to do with the Texans. And then you have some of their other culture guys just getting exposed in other ways, mainly the fact that they can't play. So I don't know if, maybe this isn't the biggest deal because Easterby was kind of overseeing the culture. But I do think that Nick Caserio at least needs to take a little bit of a look at it and figure it out. Because I always thought it was weird that you cared so much about culture while you were at this point in things anyway. But when you have everything going on, I know he's going to claim, Nick Caserio claimed misinformation and who's good at their job and whatever. Same thing Jack used to say. But I wonder what Nick Caserio thinks of his culture, because they damn sure haven't built it. Maybe they haven't even started to build it yet. But who knows? But the culture change that Watson begged for, his final wish, definitely hasn't come true. James says if Deshaun could go away, that'd be fine. He's definitely not going away. You're going to see more of Deshaun Watson than you've probably seen in a long time. He's going to be more relevant now than he's been in a while. He's going to be returning. You're going to be seeing all kinds of stories about Deshaun Watson. Facebook user says, not looking forward to Watson coming back in town next week. I'm hoping for a miracle. I mean, is it really a miracle? Texans are only a 7-point underdog in this one. And Deshaun Watson hasn't played a regular season football game in what's going to be 700 days on Sunday. Since we saw him walk off the field with J.J. Watt apologizing and stuff. So I don't know that it would be that much of a miracle. if the Texans did compete in this game. I'm starting to feel like it might be a close ball game. Maybe I'm kind of fooling myself there, but I think it's actually possible. So I was talking to someone earlier today, and this is probably it's like the third person who's brought this up. And this isn't like someone in the room or, like in the building or anything. But you guys know how it is. Like, people talk, word gets out every once in a while. Houston, it's a big town, but it can also be a small town, depending on who you talk to. It's been floated out, and I wouldn't bet on this, but it's been floated out by multiple people now to me that maybe Nick Caserio isn't a sure thing next year. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but I did call for like an evaluation of Nick Caserio, and I do think that he needs to be evaluated, and Cal needs to figure out whether or not, this is going to be the guy that take you to the next spot. But multiple people have thrown it out, and it's not just like someone it's people who talk to people throwing this out there, throwing out the possibility. And I find it really interesting because I think the most important thing when it comes to a rebuild or when it comes to making decisions during crucial times, when it comes to running an NFL organization, I think it's knowing when to cut bait and knowing when to admit your mistakes. And I think this week is a perfect time to point to that. You look at the Cleveland Browns and you look at the Houston Texans. And we can even look at Deshaun Watson. The Houston Texans in 2016, they went all in on the best quarterback in the free agent market. And that was Brock Osweiler. And Brock Osweiler ended up being a disaster. It was clear it was a shit show, but there were some organizations that might have continued to try to roll with Brock Osweiler. Or maybe we would have seen a situation where Tom Savage ends up starting a whole season with Brock Osweiler there. But the Texans and Rick Smith, they realized that they screwed up, and they sent a second-round pick and Brock Osweiler to Cleveland, took it on the chin, and then they traded up for Deshaun Watson in the draft. Now, had Rick Smith just remained complacent and not been active, who knows where this organization would be right now? I mean, who really knows? Would they have drafted Sam Darnold in the next draft? They got Baker Mayfield? I mean, I know it didn't go according to plan, but there were some good years with Deshaun Watson because they were willing to proactively admit their mistake. Cleveland Browns, they fired Sashi Brown after 2 years. Fired him after 2 years. Then they brought in John Dorsey. John Dorsey drafted a large percentage of the core that they currently have, and they got rid of him and brought someone else, to the point where they got comfortable enough, so comfortable with their organization, that they were willing to give a $250 million guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. They realized that Sashi Brown had gotten them to a certain point, and they punted on Sashi Brown. And they were in a similar situation as the Texans. They were the laughingstock of the NFL. There was talk about tanking. They were very open about it. And they had some sort of process, and they punted on it for like the complete opposite. The old school meathead, from nerdy Sashi Brown to old school meathead John Dorsey. And they punted on both of those. To where they won a playoff game. They ended their playoff drought a couple of years ago. They traded for Deshaun Watson. So my point is, people are starting to wonder about Nick Caserio, and I think it's healthy to wonder about Nick Caserio. Again, I wouldn't bet on Nick Caserio being gone, but multiple people who talk to, and maybe they're not good at their jobs according to Nick Caserio, because he's on his ivory tower and he can say who's good at their job, who's not, although he won't correct any of the misinformation and say why. I know that's him and how him and Jack do it, but there are people like talking about these types of things. And I think it's important. I'm not saying I'm not saying the answer to the question is no, but is Nick Caserio the guy to take you to the next step? Because if not, you're screwed. Because this is a really crucial time. Like, the Texans were still winning division titles with Brock Osweiler. Who knows what direction it would have gone if they would have kept that going. Cleveland could have been screwed. If John Dorsey doesn't come in there and have the draft that he had, Cleveland's not where they are right now. So you got to be proactive sometimes. And hopefully Cal McNair and hopefully the Texans are doing that. We need to beat them and help the first round we got from them, or just help yours. I think it's kind of going to be a win-win. I anticipate there's being in the middle of the first round running back territory, Deshaun Robinson territory. But I think it would be a win-win. I think protecting the number one pick is the most important thing. John J. Douglas says the organization seems hell-bent on the optics of doing what needs to be done instead of putting a winning team on the field. I don't know. The winning thing, I don't even fault them for the lack of wins right now, because I don't think that they were going to be able to do it this year with all the dead cap and limited draft assets and whatnot. I don't even knock Caserio for what he's done up to this point. I just think there's context clues that past this point, he might just be a little too robotic, and he might just be a little too stiff, and he might just be, quite honestly, like he might be just be too similar to what they got rid of with Jack Easterby. Look, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I know Jack was a pain, but I don't know. I mean, the way they talk about him, I mean, you would think that you think he didn't deserve to be fired the way that Caserio brought it up. Tyler says, Miss Man's done like 6 hours of radio. Impressive. Yeah, it is 4. Got there a little bit early, but yeah, just getting the video out there. Bring back Rick Smith. He did hit on first round picks. He got 4 of those in the next one. Just like Rick Smith draft in the first round. He doesn't, that. Just think of the Patriot way. I don't know if Nick Caserio is really the Patriot way or not. I will say, though, with what Nick Caserio is doing right now, outside of the Watson trade, which I give him a lot of credit for, it's probably easy to abandon what you truly believe in as far as like ways in which you might be stubborn when results aren't important. Like, when the Texans get good, is Nick Caserio going to become more of a Patriot way guy? And look, he was a part of that Patriot way. So, it might just be some of the stuff he believes in, but I think where guys that believe in the Patriot way, they find themselves, in a little bit of trouble is when they value stuff that really shouldn't matter too much. But who knows? It should be interesting. It should be an interesting Sunday. And Tony Buzbee is going to be there with a couple of the accusers, which I think is just absolutely crazy. I want to touch on Jeff Bagwell at the Abreu press conference today. And I'm going to play some videos from the legend, the GOAT, the media GOAT, in my opinion, Mark Berman. And listen to how crazy this is as to how much Jeff Bagwell sounds like a damn general manager. When did this happen? I know that Jim Crane talked to Jeff Bagwell, but since when did Jeff Bagwell start talking like he's running the team? Here's Jeff Bagwell talking about the Astros bringing in Abreu.
Drives some big runs. He knows how to do that. And we can get him in our lineup that can only do stuff to benefit us.
What impressed you the most about him just as a human being?
I think he's just he's driven. He loves the game of baseball. But more than anything, he talked a lot about, his family up there, a lot. He talked about, the love he has, that God helps him make decisions and stuff like that. And I'm a firm believer in all that. And I think he's in the right place at the right time in his career. But just he's going to be a type of guy that fits in perfectly here, where it's about business and having fun. The business is going out and doing it, but having fun doing it. But he's the perfect guy for this locker room as well.
Going into his age.
He's the perfect guy for this locker room. Jeff Bagwell sounds like the general manager. He sounds like the general manager. I'm not saying it's bad. It's crazy, though. I mean, he was talking about what I need. We need to target this. I need to see this. I need to see that. Listen to him talking about Yordan Alvarez. This is Jeff Bagwell talking about Yordan Alvarez. Listen to this and listen to how he's talking about it.
Field is obviously something we're going to think about, but
we're going to think about
playing, 45, 50% of the games in left field. I think it's good for him. I think mentally it's good. He enjoys it, so that's important. So there's going to have to be some way we figure out, left fielder, switch DH, first base. You can use the DH a lot in this, but I need Yordan to play about 45% of the games.
What does it mean? I need Yordan? When did this happen? I'll be the first to say I was not a James Click fan, but my gosh, I need Yordan to play this percentage. This guy brings this to the locker room. This is what we need. We need to still look at that. This is the general manager. Jeff Bagwell's gone from filling in for Jeff Blum to now all of a sudden the defending World Series champs are making moves, and Jeff Bagwell's up there saying what I need from Yordan Alvarez? What in the hell is going on? I'm not opposed to it because the Astros get the benefit of the doubt. The Texans wouldn't be able to do something like this. It comes with the territory, and it's a different situation because really you're just filling in holes. Like, who wasn't going to sign Abreu? You don't need to be a genius to know whether or not to sign Abreu. But when you got Jeff Bagwell up there saying, I need this percentage out of Yordan Alvarez, this guy's going to work this like this in the locker room. When did this happen? Maybe it's just something I need to get used to. But we heard this. Adam Spillane, Baseball Spo, best baseball mind in Houston, at Adam Spillane on Twitter, Baseball Spo. He joins our show In the Loop on the Odyssey app tomorrow at 10:45. I mean, as a baseball nerd and a stat guy, he had to have been disgusted with how comfortable old school Jeff Bagwell is just going up there basically letting you know what's going on. I need this. I need that. This is crazy. But it is also, and depends how you're going to look at this. It is also like the one thing that Jim Crane has kind of shown is he's willing to try different things. Because when you have the same mindset for too long of a period, maybe you get stale and maybe you prevent yourself from being able to get stuff done. He had Luno, then he went to Click. Now he's got Bagwell as like his right-hand guy. So it's interesting. Meanwhile, in Houston, Nick Caserio, jury's still out on him. By the way, John McClain insists that Nick Caserio has nothing to do with hiding information on quarterbacks and stuff like that. I mean, I think Lovey's made a fool of himself in more ways than one this year, but all his fault? Don't know. Also wonder what kind of coach Nick Caserio can hire. It's pretty much all we got today. It's going to be a real fun week. I think there's some Texans fans that are, I guess, not hyped. There's some that are, but at least interested in what's going to happen Sunday. But there's always that, like, if you've watched this team the last 3 years, there's always that healthy shield up where you're kind of protecting yourself, anticipating the disappointment. Regardless, Tony Buzbee will be there. Troll job, little too much if you ask me. And Jeff Bagwell, good God, the man in charge. My goodness. At Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram, Locker Room on YouTube. Keep subscribing. This has been a fun little ride. It's going to be even more and more improved after the season. But remember, no matter how bad things get, no matter how bad the Texans are, we're in this together.